Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat Live. We are here every Friday night at 8 p.m. I am Josh McCarty. With me, as always, is Luka. Luka, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Happy the work week's over. We're very close. We're less than a week away from Thanksgiving and all that fun,
Right.
long weekend activities. I'm very excited for that. But I'm doing good tonight on a personal level. It's a different feeling since the last time we were live, though. That's for sure when it comes to Bill's stuff. So without further ado, I'll kick it right back over to you. It's going to be an interesting show.
The last time we were live, the Bills were 5-3, preparing for a big showdown with the Cincinnati Bengals. And since then, we all know the story. The Bills lost 2 football games, one against the Bengals. That wasn't overly surprising, although it wasn't as competitive as many of us hoped. And then the very surprising, heartbreaking, deflating loss on Monday night against the Denver Broncos that resulted in the Bills making an offensive coordinator change. Ken Dorsey is gone. Joe Brady is up. He is the former quarterback coach. He has been the offensive coordinator in the NFL for the Carolina Panthers. The most success he's had was at the college level of Joe Burrow's LSU Tigers. Speaking of Joe Burrow, the landscape of the AFC has changed, Luka, as it was announced today that Bengals star quarterback Joe Burrow is out for the season. This is coming on the heels of Deshaun Watson being ruled out for the season. So I just threw a lot at you. The Bills have lost 2 in a row, one of which to was a definitively bad football team in the Denver Broncos. I came on the air on our Bills Chat YouTube page right after that game and said, the season is over. There's no reason to run the race anymore. These Bills are not very good. Since that time, 2 of the teams in their way in the wild card race have lost their starting quarterbacks for the rest of the year. All of that being said, Luka, are you still running the race? Are you still looking at the standings? Are you still thinking if the Bills can win X amount of games, they can get in? Where is your head at?
I'm not going to be standings watching. There's two thoughts I have to this situation. Mathematically, situations on the 15 other teams in the conference that the Bills have to fight and vie with to make the postseason have gotten a lot easier. The path has gotten a lot different when it comes to, squeaking in, whether it's wild card and technically division is still possible. The problem and the thing that I cannot wrap my head around anymore, and I refuse to after walking out of that stadium Monday night, is I just don't know at all what to expect anymore from this team. And I am not going to put any sort of thought, emotional weight, anything into this team for the rest of the season. Even if they were to go on a stretch, of course I will still support. That's not how that can't be affected. If you are a supporter, I'll get to a quote actually I learned in Liverpool when I was over in the UK. A fan is someone who enjoys a team highly and can root for from afar. A supporter is loyal and is always with you through the highs, through the lows. It is an emotional attachment that almost feels like family. That is the difference between a fanatic and a supporter. And I am a supporter of this team. I will still root for them through the highs and lows, but I am not going to put any emotional weight into a postseason at this point in time. They haven't given us anything that makes me feel, even with the Bengals current situation, which if you are a Bengals fan, you are on the lowest of low right now.
That's
Because not
terrible.
only are you looking at the reality of that you are not making the postseason this year, I mean, that's a serious injury after a stack of injuries Burrow's been dealing with, where your franchise, after you just locked it up, is essentially kind of in a weird brink status here. And then the Browns, another situation where you have a questionable quarterback decision that just continues to get injured. And they have a number one defense, number two statistic defense in the league. And it's like that could potentially still get them through. But realistically, I don't see them being anything further than that, just squeaking in. It's like those are facts that definitely help the Bills if the Bills can still remember that they are the Bills. I just don't think they know that. And then, of course, they have a couple injuries on the defensive side and stuff of that nature where it's like, do they really have what they need to anyways? Maybe, maybe not. But the offense is the biggest issue of it all. And I don't trust him anymore. I'm not going to put any emotional weight into it. And therefore, I'm not going to standings watch. I'm not going to think about the playoffs at this point in time, nor will I probably for the rest of the season, regardless if they're in or not, because I just think there's a bigger picture issue with this team and organization at this point of time where I'm no longer thinking about how far can we get in the playoffs? Can we win? Can we win at all? It's just, that's not something that I can deem realistic and sane anymore to kind of contemplate.
Roy Collins in chat, already saw his comment up there. Sammy in chat, both of them watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It helps us out so much as we are trying to build this channel up to be your one-stop shop for all Buffalo Bills content. Ray Collins, friend of the show. Sammy Ray, very close friend of the show, we would say. And then we got some other comments coming in. But you know what, Luka? I will tell you, the way the AFC has gone this week, understanding the Bills are on a 2-game losing streak, understand they just lost to the Denver Broncos. I'm open to the idea that these Bills can go on a run, but I will tell you right now, they have, if this was a video game, if this is Super Mario, because my kid's upstairs watching it right now, the Jets are level 1. Get past the Jets game, and I'll perk up and I'll look at the standings. Now, you want me to dive in with 2 feet, win one of the next 2 games after the Jets game, and it's on another Mario reference like Donkey Kong, because that would mean that the Bills either won in Philadelphia or won in Kansas City. I don't know that the Bills have to win either of those 2 games to accomplish this goal of ultimately making the playoffs, but they absolutely have to beat the Jets. They should have beaten the Broncos. If you beat the Jets, I will at least entertain the idea that the Bills have enough in the tank to put this run together, because the competition is easier than it was. I will also tell you, Luke, and this is where I want to go next. I'm very curious what this offense looks like under Joe Brady. I am not expecting a large schematical change, given the fact that he basically has had 3 days to put together this game plan. He's had no time to install new plays. I do think there are things Joe Brady can do, whether it's the sequence that he calls plays, different things he does to set up different plays. I think there are some elements he can add to this offense using the foundation that Ken Dorsey had in place. And I do think there is a chance that against a very good opponent that the Bills come out and play a very good game offensively. What are you expecting the impact to be, or at least the potential upside to be, of this midseason change to Joe Brady?
The upside is just a different voice. It's just someone else there in the ear of Allen during the game. It's just, I'm with you. I don't expect especially any immediate kind of changes to the offense. If something happens, if there's a spark there, it only kind of confirms what people have been saying, where maybe Dorsey himself was a problem more than a solution. But realistically, the change of an individual calling the offense midseason, you don't see those drastic changes. It's not like Joe Brady is all of a sudden reaching to his bookshelf, finding the 2019 LSU playbook and going, here, Josh, learn this in 5 days, and we're going to be calling out of this playbook on Sunday. That's just not, that's not how it works. This isn't Madden. This isn't, you have the offense that's been kind of methodically built from the offseason all the way to this point, and Joe Brady's just going to have to utilize that and just maybe put his own flair to it, put his own message to it, maybe actually do something that Dorsey clearly didn't do, where he liked to just spin the wheel and pick a play. Maybe he will try to design something, or at least scheme kind of an identity to this offense. But that's the only thing you can realistically expect from a Joe Brady calling the offense now, opposed to Ken Dorsey, who's now, of course, gone. I just, even through the end of this year, Josh, I don't see anything when it comes to a drastic change, just because of that major factor of there's only so much you can do with the playbook itself, the actual plays and everything of that. It would take an incredibly creative mind to utilize that, what's already been ingrained in the entire offense, to then take it and, with all of its dysfunction, create scheme and kind of the I love the analogy I heard earlier this week because they were talking about the Bills offense and how it didn't seem kind of methodic or like there was actually any identity, where you watch a Kyle Shanahan offense and it's, run to the right, run to the right, run to the right, run to the right. Oh, all of a sudden run right, play action, and you got this deep shot. Oh, run back to the right 3 more times. And then, oh, by the way, now you actually have this reverse off of it. Things like that, where it's actually being done by design rather than the classic Ken Dorsey spin a wheel or, just dial something up randomly. And it's like, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, you have cover 6. We're going to do this. Hopefully that's actually what they're throwing out there, whatever it is. That offense was abysmal. And I just can't imagine Joe Brady's going to be able to take whatever Dorsey and that entire staff has drawn up and just magically scheme out of it. It just doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we have to temper expectations for what it means. I do think that a lot of the issues with Dorsey was the fact that he kept going back to the same plays. And Dan Orlovsky has done a great job of calling this out this week. And then Chris Sims echoed a lot of those thoughts too, is that the Bills became very predictable on offense. And sometimes you don't even realize you're being predictable, but you have a go-to play on third down and you have go-to zone beater concepts. And Dorsey just relied on the same things over and over again, over and over again. Marianne says, why was the Miami game so awesome? And then that was it. Well, I think the lesson from the Miami game, Marianne, is it's such a week to week league. And you hear the players talk about this so often where, yeah, I mean, that felt like the ultimate high. But when you look back on the bulk of the season, it really does feel like the anomaly when it comes to the Bills. It's unfortunate, but on keeping that in mind, Luka, we know the Bills have that inside of them. That was their best offensive performance to date, albeit against a bad defense. But I don't think we would be stunned if Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Deion Dawkins and Mitch Morse and these guys, Dalton Kincaid, come out and put together a strong offensive performance. I think we all agree there is talent on this offense. That's why there's so much frustration about how much they are underperforming. We got some questions in the chat about Joe Burrow. What do you think that means for the Bills? Because Luka, you already said that your optimism level is pretty much washed away. Like if there could be a point down the line where the standings start looking a little better and maybe you're a little bit more into it. I just wouldn't it be the Billsiest season of all to miss out on the playoffs the year that Burrow's gone, Deshaun Watson's gone. We're only in week 11. There's going to be some other injuries along the way. Mark Andrews is gone. That's not nothing. That the path in the AFC has been so hard in recent years, and now the Bills miss out on when it could be one of the easiest paths we have seen in recent memory.
Yeah, I mean, that's very Josh. I don't want to say anything here, but that's very drought kind of thought driven by you.
Mm-hmm.
It's drought Bills. What is Billsiest? What is the Billsiest thing? And it seemed like we had finally turned a corner years ago, and we no longer should be in that mindset. And I will say this, just as a general football fan, even I didn't really ever find myself caught in that because I just feel like it's an unhealthy way to be when it comes to your mental state and everything. What I will say is this. This is the point of the season, although I haven't seen anything for optimism to come out of this. This kind of felt something like a stretch we felt in 2011, Josh, where we got pounded by the Colts. We go to the Saints and win, but then we lose to the Patriots. We lose in overtime to the Bucks. Like things seemed like they were going off the rails. The only difference was at that point in time, you still had things you could kind of go, there's a lot of things to like about the Bills offense. Like the second half in that Tampa game, of course, we were talking about like, is that the turning point, which ended up being that turning point for the remainder of that season, all the way through to the unfortunate 13 seconds. The problem with this season is, yes, I just can't wrap my head around everything. So it does feel Billsy to your question that in a season where Burrow's out for the year, Deshaun is kind of hindering all chances with the Browns. You still have the Raiders flirting around right now in the mix, but they're about to go to Miami. It's like, do you realistically think this Raiders team is going to go to Miami, even keep it close? I believe it's a 13-point spread right now. Things of that nature, like the AFC, the Steelers have still continued to be outgained every game and yet somehow win. That has to eventually regress to a mean. Like that has to happen at some point. It's not about if, it's when. You can't continue to be outgained by teams and yet win on a regular basis. So yes, it feels Billsy that the season could slip away from them and probably will slip away from them at this point in time. But why? What is the counter argument to that? Like what has this team done on the field in a 60-minute game that would make you go, well, this is why it won't actually happen. This is why everything will be fine. There's no evidence of that. You have to go all the way back to that Miami game to even find any remote of consistent success on the field. It just hasn't existed all year. And we've been blinded by just previous seasons of success and just finding a way and whatever it was, whether it was the highs of highs or even just grinding out wins and results. This team just doesn't seem to have that ability anymore. And I am normally, Josh, I think you can vouch for this, normally a very optimistic individual. This team has fully sucked the optimism out of me. I no longer can feel optimistic about anything with this team. So yeah, I guess I'm starting to get to that Billsy mind state that you brought up here. I don't think it's a good place to think. I think realistically they should still be in the hunt, but I am not going to be optimistic about anything. And it has just sucked the life out of my optimism, out of me when it comes to that. And I'm just going to try to be as down to earth as possible and realistic. And it's the fact that we have the most inconsistent and unfortunate team in the league right now that just cannot click on any cylinder, let alone all of them, to put a stretch together to ultimately make the playoffs, even with the AFC collapsing around it.
John Robert asks, anyone heard who is going to be the new quarterback coach? Our friend Sarah Kahn in chat has the answer. It is Mike Shula, Don Shula's son. McDermott came out this week and said that he would be around the quarterbacks more. McDermott's not going to come out and announce anything. Look, folks, I mean, McDermott is about as paranoid as it gets. It's not like he's the only NFL coach that's paranoid, but he won't tell you anything definitively. For him to say that, I think you can assume that Mike Shula will take that role on. I still don't know if Joe Brady is going to be in the booth or on the sidelines. He said he's done both in his career. And, that's not something that necessarily matters to me. I know some people are interested in that. Well, Luka, you being in a negative mindset, I'm almost afraid to ask you this next question, but we talk about optimism around the team, but a sub conversation of all of that has been the optimism around Josh Allen, because boy, it's a tricky conversation this year. On one hand, and it's so fascinating how everything is flipped. Early in Josh Allen's career, like the 2019 Bills, they were winning games and analytics hated Josh Allen. It was like, there's nothing efficient about his game. It's all or nothing. He's not accurate, and he has a lot of turnover worthy plays, and it's just working for some reason. And the team's really good around him. Now, Josh Allen, to the statistics, is turning the ball over at an alarming rate. The Bills are 5-5, and analytics is like out in front of everybody saying Josh Allen is playing excellent. And a lot of what you're seeing is just poor luck. I want to say it was Mike Tanier potentially that said Josh Allen has one of the lower turnover worthy plays in the entire sport, better than Lamar Jackson. Dan Orlovsky said that Josh Allen, to his eyes, only has 3 bad passes all season long, as far as that resulted in turnovers. And, like some of those where he's talking about, like, he threw the ball 50 yards downfield on 3rd and 20 in one-on-one coverage and it got intercepted. And you can live with that. Where are you at with Josh Allen? Because I mean, the end all be all of this entire conversation, if you take the turnovers out of a couple of these games, the Bills have 2 or 3 more wins. Take the turnovers out of the Jets game, the Bills win that Jets game going away. Take the turnovers out of this last Broncos game, the Bills win that game. Take the turnovers out of the Patriots game, the Bills win that game. So where are you at with Josh Allen? Are you losing hope? Do you think this is just a hard luck season for him? Where are you at with him, I guess, now and going forward? Do you still consider him in that upper echelon? Just air out your thoughts to me. And I'm afraid to ask because you've already said you're negative.
No, this is more, it's not about being negative, Josh. It's about being realistic with things. And unfortunately for the Bills as a team right now, it does appear to tip in the negative side. But with Josh Allen, I will say the career, the future with him, I'm still in a good spot where I think he can be corrected. I think this could be just a hard season, a gut check season, kind of a reality check of, hey, you have to earn it. in order to get it. We heard in this offseason, and I don't care about the golf content, and I don't care about a lot of golfing that he doesn't regularly. I don't think that is anything of care. What I will say is when you hear things like he doesn't care about working out, he's eating fast food regularly, and he does it because it's for his mental health and kind of just that's what he needs to do to kind of enjoy the offseason to make sure he's motivated and ready going into the following season, that he might need to have a reality check on, because I think as he continues to go, he needs to put more effort into getting into a season to then sustain, having the right mindset, having the right physical capabilities of going throughout a tough season. Because it seems like now we're running into this. Last year, it seemed like it took about till week 8 or so, where maybe we're seeing maybe a few things crack with Josh Allen. The Vikings game, that last interception, he didn't, in overtime, he didn't truly trust the throw. He kind of hitched it a little bit and ultimately underthrew an open Gabe Davis for all intents and purposes on a route that they do like to throw in that game last year. And it kind of was just not clicking on all cylinders from that point. This year, after 4 or 5 weeks, we're starting to get to that same point in time. And I just wonder if mentally that's where I'm concerned with him. I think something needs to happen and get corrected with Josh Allen mentally, because, for instance, I know there was a lot of hate out there, and even in person, I wasn't sure who to blame with the Josh Allen exchange to James Cook. That's 100% on Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
You see the replay, and it's just like that is a to the basics situation, full extension, commit to the handoff situation. It's not even like there was an option for him to tuck and run himself either. That is just the design of the play. And he really kind of, for lack of a better term, half-assed it, didn't get it into the basket that James Cook needed it to be. And it just, a bad bounce went against them after that point, and you turned the ball over, especially after moving what was it, 3rd and long right before that? I've memory serves me right. I'm trying to avoid remembering that game. But I want to say they just picked up the 3rd and long to Gabe Davis over the middle or whoever it was. And it seemed like, okay, we got out of that tough situation early in this drive. And then boom, it was just like for a second, Josh Allen just was not all there. And he did that. And I think that's happening on too regular of an occurrence this season, where someone just needs to test him, challenge him, get him in a better mindset, both for right now, but then continue through the offseason and alter his offseason in the way where he doesn't feel like he needs to, not work out at all. And I'm not saying, hitting the gym hard is going to change that, but just alter what you do in the offseason so that hopefully you're mentally sharper going into a season and you can sustain the highs and lows as they come and go. Because in all reality, no one has a perfect season in this league. It's a tough league to win in, the classic cliche that is. You need to be able to mentally handle those highs and lows. And I think Allen is starting to show that he is far from capable of handling those things, because I think when all things go great, he clearly loves to enjoy it, as he should. If you are in the ultimate highs of this league, you should be able to reap those joys and benefits. But when one thing goes wrong after that, it shouldn't put you into a shell to the point where you look like you're an absolute head case on the sideline and just constantly dipping your head, showing bad body language. I think that's a serious issue for Josh Allen right now. And just something needs to happen in that regard moving forward, where he just figures it out in a different way, because what he's been doing is trending in a negative direction, not because of his physical abilities, or that I think I saw, like Colin Cowherd said, he's showing his age. It's like, I don't know how a 27-year-old shows their age. I feel like that's a pretty fine age to be at physically wise. I just think it's mental a little bit more with him, and you just need to figure out something else because it's just not working.
Stokes comes in with, who was the inside source that said Josh was eating too much fast food? Well, Stokes, this isn't a hard mystery to solve. It was Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I think he said so on Barstool. He said so on multiple interviews.
He said it numerous times. Yeah.
It's one of those deals where, I hate to be that fan, because I always cringe when you hear a caller call in and say, I saw player X at an NBA game on Friday. They don't want it bad enough. They should have been home studying their playbook. And I roll my eyes at that stuff. It's like, they are human beings. They deserve to be able to live their life. But I do think there needs to be a tough conversation. Stokes, I say that was a great source. There needs to be a tough conversation about what's going on with Josh Allen, because there is the piece about how he says his diet is gone to shambles in the off season and metabolism hasn't caught up with him. He did say the thing about how he didn't lift weights all off season because his body was more so in recovery mode. And then he also didn't throw footballs very much this offseason because he was giving his elbow a rest. But I mean, I'm no body expert, but if you're swinging the golf club, 100 times a week, chances are that elbow's not getting as much of a rest.
Look, it's a little bit different. All
Well,
right.
there's still some elbow.
Yeah, absolutely. But
So,
you're not twisting it and torquing it nearly
mm,
as much. It's more wrist. I mean, you don't want it to be, but naturally the shock
okay,
is.
okay,
Anyways, all right.
take it easy. Take it easy. We don't need to get into the whole medical thing here. But the larger point is, I feel like there is a chance, and this doesn't have to mean anything, but when Josh Allen was great, and he's great right now, but when he took that leap from fun, toolsy project to, wow, this guy's in the all pro conversation, he was spending all offseason training with Jordan Palmer, working on his mechanics, working on his throwing motion. And then you see things like Joe Burrow spent all offseason working on his pocket mobility. And maybe that's a meme today because he's injured. And Patrick Mahomes, if you watch that quarterback documentary, look at the drills he does. And this is the guy that is the best. He's coming off of his second Super Bowl and he's still grinding. And I don't know what this all amounts to. Maybe it amounts to Josh Allen just losing like an inch. But we're talking about the best of the best in the entire world. You give an inch when you're the best of the best in the entire world, it might as well be a mile because it's not just about Burrow and Mahomes. You have Jalen Hurts coming up. You have Tua coming up. All of a sudden, there's this kid, CJ Stroud, out of nowhere. Now he's on the come up. There is always somebody looking for that spot. So I don't know whatever happened this offseason. I think it's a very realistic conversation, though. We know there's some stuff with Josh's personal life that we certainly have not gotten into on this show. But it was an interesting offseason for him. And I don't know if it's a focus issue for him, but I would like to see him get back to a little bit more of a NFL quarterback level offseason. All right, well, Luka, we're about 25 minutes in, and we haven't even really talked much about these New York Jets. They have beaten the Bills once already this season. We know the story about this Jets team. Now, you want to talk about a team that has had some adversity. 4 plays into their season, they lose their starting quarterback, the guy that they threw a parade for when he came into New York, a figurative parade, not a literal one. And their season seemed like it was falling down the toilet. All of a sudden, though, they win week 1 against the Buffalo Bills, and they've been hanging out in the race, but when they really push comes to shove and they need points from their offense, they're not getting it, and that's resulted in a 2-game losing streak. I think we know what this team is. They're tough on defense, very tough on defense. They have owned the Bills in a lot of ways in recent years on defense, but offensively, it is a challenge for this team to sustain offense. If they can do what they did against the Bills week 1, which is get long plays, Brees Hall long runs, that seems to be their best path to scoring. It seems very unrealistic that they're going to put together 10, 12 play drives. They're just not efficient enough. Where are you at with these Jets? How do you feel they match up with the Bills? And I guess how confident are you heading into this game?
I mean, they match up well. It'd be crazy to say that they don't. But previous records have shown this Bills team has played at a better level against this same Jets defense and has not been up to the billing. And so when I look at this matchup, the matchup quite literally is just on one side of the ball, to be quite frank. Like it just is. It is the Bills offense versus the Jets defense. That is this game, because the 30th ranked offense is coming to town in the Jets against a depleted Bills defense that can hold its own, but I do think can be stretched even against subpar defenses right now, just due to the lack of athletes and lack of high-end talent that they would normally have at full health. So that side will probably be kind of very wild card-ish, Zach Wilson and the arm talent that he still has, even though, between the ears might be a problem. He's still got incredible arm talent, might be able to find a play or two. It's the ultimate wild card. So to me, it would almost be just wrong to make a prediction of how the Bills defense will handle the Jets offense. I don't think anyone has any idea. Roy Collins, the comment you just brought up, Jets offensive line's in shambles. It's an absolute shambles. Garrett Wilson's not at 100%. Alan Lazard's the 98th ranked wide receiver out of 120 that can be ranked in this statistic. Like, it's just like, they're not good over there. They can't score touchdowns, as you also mentioned. They couldn't score a touchdown at the Raiders, one of the worst defenses in the league. And they also couldn't score a touchdown against the Chargers at home, Again, one of the worst defensive scoring wise in the league. If you can't score on these teams, you are going to have problems even against an average defense, I would think. So chalk that up as a complete wild card. I have no idea. When you look at the Bills offense versus the Jets defense has the number 1 and number 2 rated linebacker in the league. They have the number 5 and number 4 rated corner in the league. They are stacked. The number 3rd interior defender. They're very good on the edge. They have just a Rolodex of quality edge defenders at this point in time. They're all high-end guys that would definitely play serious minutes for every other team in the league. This Bills offense has to be at its absolute best to move the ball efficiently and down the field at a consistent rate. Now, I just said at its best. We have been very far from our best on the offense as of this point in time. I just don't know what to expect from this Bills offense. This is one of those games, Josh, where I truly believe it could go either way, and it will be the ugliest. It's going to be the ugliest car wreck you have ever seen in your life. You will not be able to look away. Even if you are a neutral football fan, I think you are excited for this game because you have no idea what to expect. You expect it to be a disaster regardless. And for whatever reason, it's going to finish as an absolute bloodbath, 1-score game. And it could be who kind of scores late-ish in the game. Like if a team to me gets in the end zone early 4th quarter, Josh, that's the team that's most likely going to win because finding the end zone is going to be tough. And I just don't know how either offense is going to be able to do it. And that's crazy to say. If I could catch myself 6 weeks ago saying, I don't know how the Bills are going to find the end zone at all in a game, I would think I needed to be locked up in a ward because that is just an insane thing to say. But that's just the reality of this team right now. And this Jets team deserves all the respect on the defensive side of the ball, regardless of their metrics. They're just an unbelievably talented defense that I don't know how an inconsistent Bills offense does anything against it.
To Roy Collins' point, though, there is some room to gain on the ground against them. Now, look, this is just statistics. They give up, where are we at here? They are the 31st ranked team in yards per game against the run, 138.4. And in the last 3 games, they've been giving up 145 yards per game, which is 5th worst in the league over that stretch. Now, look, there's 2 ways you could look at that. One, they have a problem stopping the run, or 2, which is probably more realistic, teams have realized they are really hard to throw against. So they are just taking the run and they're facing a large volume of run, which, and teams also realize that their offense is probably not going to run away and hide from you. So not every drive needs to end in points. Running, punting is not the worst thing. Where I find that to be interesting, Luka, is maybe this is the perfect opponent for the Bills right now. I know that sounds weird because this is a team that has really done well against the Bills, but if the issues on the Bills are offense, and we have every reason to believe they are because they fired their offensive coordinator this week, talk about a perfect opponent. They come in with an elite defense and an anemic offense. I feel pretty good about this. If the Bills offense doesn't give the Jets short fields, the Bills defense will be just fine in this matchup. Does just fine mean they're going to shut them out? No. I think they will hold the Jets under 20 with hardly breaking a sweat. This is the perfect matchup for the Bills offense. And there are 2 ways they could go about it. One, they're trying to show the world that they're back and Joe Brady is here and they open it up and they just try to go out there and light up the Jets. Now, that could go one of 2 ways. One, they light up the Jets and we are all a lot more confident on Monday morning. Or 2, it resembles week 1 where the offense turns the ball over like crazy because this defense is real, and an offense on the Jets side that need a lot of help gets a lot of help, and the Bills lose a football game. The other way this could go, and this might be the way I predict it goes, is the emphasis on turnovers is the number 1 to do this week. And while the Bills may not look overly impressive statistically or overly impressive drive sustain wise, I think they can grind out their way to a victory this week, making more plays on offense than the Jets do just by not turning the ball over, playing the field position game, and then cashing in 1 or 2 red zone drives throughout the game and beating the Jets by a nice, comfortable, I don't know, 17-6, 16 or 17-16 to be lose. Yeah, 17-13, whatever. Not sexy, not like, oh, the offense is back. I'm curious to see which way the Bills go, because when you fire your offensive coordinator, I think the human reaction is, let's go show them what we got. This is not a let's go show them what we got opponent. Next week isn't either, by the way. And the week after that is Kansas City. So,
well, 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but by week
opponent after that is Kansas City. But the larger point is, this is actually a great time for the offense to figure out the turnover issue and stay efficient, and not necessarily go into any of these games with the mindset of scoring 40. If they score 40 in any of these games, we will be thrilled. How do you think the Bills attack, maybe specifically the Jets, in this matchup?
I do think, as weird and crazy as it seemed like this would sound, they just take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. Like the Raiders, as also weird as this sounds, did this last week. They still were trying to get Davante Adams the ball as much as they could. They made an absolute effort to do so. The thing is, though, they took the ball out of Aiden O'Connell's hands. They just designed, a handful of plays that were really well thought out to get Davante Adams in certain spaces where he was away from those elite boundary corners, so that they could at least control the field position of the game. And that's really what it came down to. It wasn't run heavy. It was still plenty of Josh Jacobs, and then just kind of try to hit over the middle, get him away, get Davante Adams and all the receivers away from the boundaries, because that is where the Jets absolutely excel, with those top tier corners, and just control the game with field position. And like you're saying, as long as you don't give short fields to this Jets team, you never feel like they're going to actually be able to sustain a drive enough to go beyond, let's say, 50 yards down the field, where maybe they get a decent field goal try. And if that's the case, I think the Bills are going to do this, because that would also hopefully help limit your turnovers by taking the ball out of Allen's hands when it comes to the passing game, and just simplifying stuff, make it as efficient as possible. And I'm hoping also, Josh, that Joe Brady did one thing that I don't think was being had, or something of that nature. And it's something that I know was there during what seemed like the successful years of the past with Josh Allen. And that was his own input on plays he liked, things he was seeing and he liked out there. It felt too random for that to be the case under Dorsey. The offense never, ever, even at its peak, felt like there was actually a design, a rhythm, a go-to play, anything like that at all. It was always just kind of, I like this play 67 in this playbook that has us doing this because we think we're getting that coverage. I'm hoping Joe Brady just kind of takes Josh Allen's input a little bit more. If there's something he likes and he's comfortable running in this game, just run it. If that's the time you need to do it, like that's what you do after turnovers, especially. It's like, hey, let's just go back and lean on something that you're comfortable with. Let's go back and just do something that you could probably do with one eye closed. Hopefully you don't do that. But regardless, the message is there. It's like, you are comfortable running this. You find success in this play, and it can get you back into the game. That would be a great sight for me to kind of see those quote unquote money plays and just things that Allen's comfortable with, so that you don't lose the field position game overall, because Zach Wilson's not going to sustain a drive over 50 yards on us. So as long as you're not turning over the ball to create those short fields, I feel very good that, it should be doable for this team. Whether that actually happens or not, Josh, I still am not sure.
I have one prediction for how I think this is going to go. So the Bills, in Josh Allen's career prior to this year, Josh Allen has had so prior to this year, let me do some quick math. He's played 77 games, and he has had 540 rushing attempts for just over 3,000 yards. This season, Josh Allen has played 10 games and he has 48 rushing attempts. The difference is, up until this year, he averaged nearly 8 carries per game. This year, he's averaging less than 5 carries per game. That doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of a season, that is a lot. I think the Bills are going to unlock rushing Josh Allen. for a few reasons. One, the point Roy Collins already made is this is where you can attack the Jets. Two, Leslie Frazier was on NFL Network this week, and he said one thing that made the Bills impossible to stop was you had to defend Josh Allen like a runner first. And if you didn't, he would just continue to take the running lanes. And this year, the Bills have made it easy on defenses, allowing them to play coverage. And three, and this is one of those, the reality of the situation, Sean McDermott has fired his offensive coordinator after showing his defensive coordinator the door early in the season. They are a 5-5 football team. You can tell me you want to save Josh Allen and extend the mileage on his career. But there is whispers now that, national media whispers, and Sean McDermott has pushed everybody aside that could be the scapegoat. If this season continues going the wrong direction, there will be conversations this offseason of if it is time to replace Sean McDermott. So from his standpoint, saving Josh Allen could be saving him for his next coach. Break glass in case of emergency. Guess what? It's emergency time. You lose a game like this, your season's over. You can't leave anything in the bag. I think there is a very realistic chance that before the season ends, we see Josh Allen get double-digit carries in a game. That could be this game because of the opponent. But I think we're going to see a large uptick in Josh Allen carries, and I think it starts this week. I do think that Joe Brady's going to get a lot of credit for that, but I think that is a large shift from the organization philosophy of, okay, we've kept some stuff in the bag. It's time to empty the bag. Mama Luka checking in with, I'm behind a little in your show, but Allen needs. Mama Luka, thank you for watching. We appreciate you always. That's why you were laughing. Luka, what do you think about Josh Allen running?
Yeah, no, I will say this. The one optimism I have when it comes to Josh Allen running, especially starting this week, is sorry, I'm still just, it's in the back of my head. Joe Brady's also auditioning for a job.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening. And when you're auditioning, when you're interviewing for a job, you want to be at your best and you want to show what you're capable of, and you want to, show that you are worth it. And he gets a lucky kind of what is this now? We're week 11, so he gets a 7-game audition to show what he can do with a Josh Allen offense. And he even came out and had he would take Josh Allen offense all day long. Like, he was so excited to have a Josh Allen kind of quarterback to call an offense for. And I will say, any offensive mind, it feels like, understands the power, and defensive minds as well understand the power of Josh Allen in the run game. So it does feel like at this point in time, between McDermott's situation where he's finally feeling the fire of that seat, and then Joe Brady being in kind of that audition for a job right now, it's kind of that perfect storm where I'm with you in that regard. You will probably see a lot more Josh Allen keepers. You will probably see him just being told, hey, don't be afraid to run with the ball. Don't be afraid to just take space. Don't be afraid to take those hits that, we tell you probably not to until it's dire straits, because, well, wink, wink, we are in dire straits. Our jobs are on the line right here. So I am with you on that philosophy. I'm with you on that. So it's one of the things where I would wholeheartedly, whatever the rushing, kind of over under is for Josh Allen, I definitely am kind of looking at that and would probably peak hit the over on that one.
Let's talk about something positive before we get into predictions. I feel like this has been a negative show, and I think there are some positives here. Let's talk about the Bills' first-round pick, Dalton Kincaid. Lucas, since Dawson Knox went down, Dalton Kincaid, in the 4 games since that injury, has 20, I'm doing quick math, so forgive me, 28 targets and 2 touchdowns. And I'm just going to 210, basically 275 yards in that stretch of 4 games. I think the kid looks like a star. I think he has great awareness, particularly for a rookie, for how to get open against zone and man coverage. He uses his body well. He's smooth. His hands are absolutely sure-handed. I know he dropped the ball. Maybe it was last week, and it was like, whoa, that's weird. I haven't seen that in a while. How optimistic are you about the future of Dalton Kincaid? And can he be somebody that puts himself in that upper echelon of tight ends? Let's say Travis Kelce's in a universe of his own. Can Dalton Kincaid be somebody that by the time next year rolls around is in that next tier?
Yeah, I do believe that. Kincaid's already shown us enough in his rookie year where he can continue to take steps forward to tier up, when it comes to a pass catcher in that big receiver / tight end role for this team. Last week he had a couple drops where, everyone was having a bad night, to be quite honest. And he's one of the few guys I will shake off and just be like, he's a rookie. It's still, you have to give him that 1 year plus cushion of just getting comfortable in the league. He still hasn't even had a full NFL offseason to feel like he's a pro. This is his first year in the league, and he's had some success early on in a few games where now it's kind of the reality check of you're still a rookie. Like, mistakes are going to happen. I do believe that Dalton Kincaid can continue to grow, and it can even happen later in this season. It could be happening this Sunday, and it definitely will, I imagine, happen down the road next season and further on. So I have no worries with Dalton Kincaid. If you're trying to put a positive spin on this episode, which I do appreciate, Josh, he is definitely one of those positives, even in this offense right now, where you can expect and hope for it to build in a positive direction, because he's already shown you enough this year, even in the downs, that he can be a productive player in this offense with Josh Allen. So it's all positives when it comes to Kincaid, even if he has a drop or two here and there.
All right, let's predict the game. The Bills come in amazingly as 7-point favorites. Oh, I just saw that, and I had to double check it with 3 different sources. 7-point favorites, Luka?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
The Bills are 7-point favorites over the Jets. Oh, God. Okay, I'm glad you confirmed it, because I was clicking 4 different sites. I was like, I got to be getting trolled right now. And the over-under that's not correct. Do you have the over-under? It said 44.5. There's no shot that's correct.
Sorry. It might have opened up at that. I have it here.
Over-under is 40 points. That makes more sense.
40. Yeah.
7.5-point favorites, 40-point over-under. Luka, to say the Bills' backs are against the wall is the understatement of the season. This is kind of like the last stand of these Bills. We know what's coming down the line. We know they don't have to win out to make the playoffs, but we know that they play the 2 Super Bowl representatives from last year in their building. They still got to go to Miami. They play the Dallas Cowboys. They play the Chargers. Losing at home to Zach Wilson is not something you can afford to do if you want this season to go anywhere. Will the desperate Bills, 7.5-point favorites in all, beat the New York Jets on Sunday at 425?
I don't know where you're seeing 7.5. It's 7 even everywhere.
I will say FanDuel up, so maybe that's not correct.
I will say it might have just changed, or because covers.com still had them at 7 even, but it could have changed. Anyways, this is a game where I got a split mind on it when it comes to a prediction. On one hand, the Bills absolutely should win this game. They shouldn't lose this game. You can't be losing, even in down times. You can't be losing to a team that legitimately doesn't even sniff the end zone. The only time they sniffed it last week against the Raiders, they actually kept getting holding penalties and things that backed them up 15 plus yards to inevitably a chip shot field goal. It's one of those things where it's like, if you have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, I don't care about anything else. You should be beating teams that can't sniff end zones. I don't care how good your defense is either. So that's one thing. But this team has, as I said earlier, sucked the absolute optimism out of me. And I just can't feel comfortable about anything with it all. I just think that the one thing the Jets have going for them is still this insane hope that if they can continue to be in the mix, Josh, that Aaron Rodgers is going to do the improbable and come back within a season that he ruptured his Achilles. I don't believe in the conspiracies, for what it's worth. I do believe he has an Achilles injury. I think the conspiracy of him not actually have torn his Achilles is insane. I also don't believe he actually will come back. That's neither here or there. It's just the Jets still have something they can hold on to, even as the offense is kind of sputtering. The Bills are sputtering with a unit that shouldn't be, because all the personnel are there and there's a lot of question marks being done. But then I'll also say this, Josh. I think it's been a very business-like week for the Bills this week. I think the firing of Ken Dorsey, as Josh Allen said, he took it personally. And it's a message that's clearly sent where it's like, hey, man, we can't fire you, Josh. We can't bench you, obviously. This is just a message to deliver to Josh Allen and Josh Allen only. that he's got to be better and this offense is going to be better because you need to be better. So with that in mind, this line doesn't make any sense. And the gambler keeps peeking in there in my brain there, Josh. I think the Bills cover the 7-point spread because they have no right to. And it just seems like easy money to take the +7. And the gambler in me cannot get beyond that fact. So I am going to take the Bills. And I cannot believe to say this because I have it written down that I can show that I was going to take the Jets 16-10. But I'm going to take the Bills, and they are going to win 24-10.
All right. Bills get a win in your mind. You know what this season feels like to me, and we haven't had one of them in a while? A drought Bills season. And if you lived through the drought like I did, the entire playoff drought, outside of a couple years, 2010 and 2001, really, the Bills were always in the hunt, and it's become kind of a meme. They were in the race. And I cannot tell you how many times, 2003, 2004, there was a game where EJ Manuel came back late in the year of his rookie year, and he threw touchdown passes to TJ Graham, some of the worst passes you'll ever see. They got caught up in the wind, and TJ Graham comes back and catches them. There was the Thursday night game in New York against the Jets, that Rex's return game where Tyrod goes out there and looks really, really good, and the Bills win on the road in primetime, which is something they hadn't done in a while. There were so many mid to late-ish, like the 70% length of the season where you're like not quite near the end of it, but you're close enough, where the Bills get a win over the Jets that springs us all into false belief that ultimately crumbles in our face and leads to heartbreak. With that said, I think the Bills win this game. I think they find a way to win this game. I think it reignites hope into all of us. These are not the drought Bills. They certainly should not be held to that standard. They have done way too much winning for us over recent years, and they deserve that benefit of the doubt. I'm saying a lot of this tongue in cheek. I hope you guys can understand that. I am not pretending like we are back in a playoff drought. These Bills have been very successful. Sean McDermott and Josh Allen deserve better than that. I think there's a lot to what Luka said. I think they have a mental reset this week, business-like approach. I think the Jets are going to get their best shot. And quite honestly, if the Bills in this environment can't convince themselves to protect the football, they never will. As long as the Bills don't turn the ball over, I think they will be fine. I think that's a point of emphasis this week. I think we're going to see a lot of Josh Allen running. I would take the over on whatever his projected total is. Give me the Bills 23-13 to get a victory over the Jets this week, get to 6-5, and set up a matchup the next week against Philadelphia that has us all thinking, they pull this off, is on. So that would be a lot of fun. So that's how we see the point spread situation going on with the Bills. Speaking of point spreads, Luka, there are other NFL games this weekend, and we're going to cover 3 of those right now in Luka's Locks. Tell the folks how your season's been going in Luka's Locks.
It's been a roller coaster, that's for sure. We had that mid-season absolutely ridiculous cold streak. But then we had a 3-0 2 weeks ago. We had a little bit of a setback last week with a 1-2, although it was the 2-unit play. Thank you, Vikings and Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut, for that. I mean, he covered and some. We're doing okay. We're trying to right the ship here. I'm feeling good about this week. I'll be quite honest. This is an interesting week. I don't really care for the slate, but then kind of looking at it over a little bit and stuff of that nature, I do like the picks I got. Naturally, I like the picks I got, of course, but I'm liking them a little bit more than when I was in my drought and it was kind of just reaching at straws for what I like kind of deal. I think we're in a spot here, Josh, where I think I can right the ship.
Well, let's start off with an NFC East matchup in Washington, D.C., as the Washington Commanders and Sam Howell, who's starting to look like a pretty good quarterback, take on the New York Giants and Tommy DeVito, who is not starting to look like a pretty good quarterback. The Washington Commanders are a 9-point favorite. The over-under in this game is 37.5. Luka, what do you see in this game?
I see just a classic divisional matchup with then also a bad quarterback being played in this game, an all-time bad quarterback. Maybe not Clayton Tune all-time bad with the Cardinals, but DeVito does look horrible in his own right. And this matchup is just, don't overthink it. Earlier in the season, we had a Commanders at New York game that finished 14-7, right? It wasn't the prettiest affair at all together. And somehow, some way, the Giants actually won that game. I will say, now that it's back in Washington, and Sam Howell is somehow your passing leader in the NFL, I do like Washington a lot in this game, but what I love even more is under 37.5. Don't overthink it. It's a divisional game as we approach Thanksgiving. It's always the time, even when you are seeing overs hit in the league, to bet the under. It's the perfect storm to hit the under. And this has been an under type season. Yes, it's a low number at 37.5. I do believe Sam Howell will be able to run the offense well for them. I just question if DeVito is going to be able to do anything at all, especially with what we've seen. I just also need him to not turn over the ball a crazy number of times and just essentially put the ball in his own end zone like he did against Dallas. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But overall, I just like under 37.5. This feels like a classic divisional kind of late season game where it's going to be ugly. It's going to be low scoring. It's probably not going to be great material to watch on television. So therefore, if you're going to give me minus 105 on FanDuel for under 37.5, I will absolutely take it. I love that play.
9 points is a massive point spread for a division game when neither one of these teams are great. I think that speaks to just how bad the Giants have been recently. They have been hit hard by injuries, losing their top two quarterbacks. Speaking of big division spreads, AFC South rivals do battle this week in Jacksonville as the Tennessee Titans and Will Levis head to Jacksonville to take on a Jacksonville Jaguars team that is licking their wounds after being blown out at home last week against the San Francisco 49ers. The division leading Jaguars are favored by 7 points. Luka, how do you see this game going?
This is a game where I'll start with this. Everything I said about the Giants Commanders game, classic divisional game later in the season. It's a grind, low scoring, yada, yada, yada. Tennessee is historically awful right now on the road. They are just abysmal. They can't even stay remotely close into games. They let me down last week against a bad Tampa Bay team. And the Jaguars, off of an absolute ass beating, are now getting to play a team where I think after that kind of initial high they've had with Will Levis, Tennessee has looked quite low right now, and they look a little bit lost. Even for a well-coached team, I still respect Vrabel a lot as a head coach. I just think the talent is gone, and the biggest weakness of Tennessee, to be quite frank, is their pass defense, and the Jags are set up so perfectly for something like that, even without the kind of likes of Zay Jones because of his own personal issues and stuff of that nature. I think Doug Peterson in the passing game can be schemed up very well in this matchup. And overall, when you need a bounce back game, this is the time to do it. Yes, it could still hit that under a 40, but in unconventional ways, I do believe the Jags cover that 7-point spread. It is a lot of points, especially in a divisional game, but it's one of those, I'll call it man in the suit situations. You hear that with other individuals as well, where it's like, it tells me that I should be taking Tennessee +7. The public money is even on the Jags a little bit right now with that 7-point spread, but I'm going to flip everything and I'm just going to go right back to the Jags because there is just absolutely nothing in my mind going for the Titans where I believe that they could even score, let's say 14 points to then force the Jags to score 21 points. Like it's just one of those ones where if the Titans score 13 points, I'll be shocked, but I can easily see a world where Jacksonville eclipses 20. So therefore, give me the Jags -7.
Yeah, the shine is off Will Levis big time. Boy, he looked good early on, but he lacks serious touch and accuracy. I had some DeAndre Hopkins bets last week that should have gone way better than they did. He was open a lot, but could not get the ball delivered to him accurately by Will the Thrill Levis. All right. Another division matchup this week, Luka. NFC West. The Seattle Seahawks travel to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. The Seahawks are a 1-point favorite. Stafford's back this week, right?
Stafford is back this week. Yes.
That's kind of odd because I know the Rams historically play really well against the Seahawks. I hope I'm not tipping the hand of where you're going with this. But I am going to say, Luka, how do you see this NFC West showdown going?
It is kind of funny. I didn't even recognize it until we just went through this breakdown here, Josh, but I chose 3 divisional games. I guess we're at that point of season, though, where you start seeing them ramp back up as we then continue on. So it's hard to avoid them. This is a game here where it's like, I feel Seattle is in this weird gray area space, and Gino's kind of trending downwards a little bit, but he still got that win last week too. And I think a lot of the public I know is on Seattle right now. I don't want to say a lot, but a majority, a good majority is on Seattle. But the Rams are coming off a bye. They get Stafford back. They finally have Stafford with Kupp and Puka Nacua once again. And let's not forget, without Kupp week one, the Rams dominated the Seahawks because, as you pointed out, there's this cyclical thing in the NFC West. Kyle Shanahan owns Sean McVay. Then Sean McVay owns Pete Carroll. And then, for whatever reason, normally Pete Carroll would then have a pretty good feeling of how to handle Kyle Shanahan. And then they all gang up on the Cardinals and they all dominate the Cardinals. That's just how it works in the NFC West. With all of that in mind, this line made no sense to me. I don't understand how you saw the Seahawks being the favorite this whole time. I will say on PointsBet, it's already flipped. The Rams are -1. On Caesar Sportsbook, it is a true pick 'em. They are not even giving you the ability to take a spread. It is only money line, true pick 'em. But on DraftKings and FanDuel, you can get them at +1. Screw the point. Give me the money line. I expect the Rams to win this game with Stafford back and healthy. I love the money line in this situation. I think the history of McVay owning Pete Carroll continues because I just also don't believe in Geno Smith to run an efficient offense. I just don't think it happens for them. And we've seen it even going back to the later years of Russell Wilson in Seattle. Later in the season, I think there's just not enough creativity with the Seattle offense, no matter who's play calling, that eventually they get got. So even a subpar defense like the Rams can at least hold their own and do their part against a subpar play in Geno Smith. And then Stafford and McVay can do their job through the air with Kupp, with Nacua, and whoever else they have in the backfield. I think right now it's Henderson Jr. splitting with Royce Freeman, which is wild, but they will be able to do okay things themselves. And I think the Rams end up winning this divisional game. I love it. I'm putting it as my absolute lock of the week with the 2-unit play. Give me the Rams money line against the Seahawks.
And that's a good tip too, is when you see a -1 point spread, you might as well just take the extra juice and take the money line, because all you're giving up is the 1 point win for the Rams. That would be a push for you. Get the extra money in your pocket. You think the Rams are going to win, just take the money line. So to wrap up Luka's locks for week number 11, he has the New York Giants and Washington Commanders under 37.5 points. The Jacksonville Jaguars covering a 7-point spread over the Tennessee Titans at home, and the Rams at home beating the Seattle Seahawks. Doesn't even want the point he's given. Give him the money line. That is his 2-unit play. And that will do it for the week 11 edition of Luka's Locks. All right, Luka. Any final thoughts on Bills, Jets? Rick LaFleur coming in chat. Hold that L. Denver Broncos, let's ride. Rick, it is
respect.
Friday, 4 days after the game ended.
Hey, man.
And you are, I mean, I appreciate you hanging out and watching our show. We appreciate that. But I feel like as a Broncos fan, there's got to be something better to do with your evening than trolling people that root for the team that your team played 4 days ago. But whatever. I'm happy your team won. That had to be a cool moment for Broncos fans. I have a few that texted me after the game that were very excited. From the Bills fan standpoint, you're just like counting the ways they blew that game. But I mean, yeah, you get it. Your team was a huge underdog on the road and they win it. All right, Luka, final thoughts. There's been a lot to chew on this week. I think there's been a lot of soul searching, both from the Bills standpoint and fans standpoint. We both know that I think you and I are, I would say, hesitant at best to get too wrapped up in playoffs and things of that nature. I think there is some paths for things to go our way this weekend where maybe even as soon as Monday, we're like, all right, I'm back in. But for me, a lot of that will depend on how the Bills look against the Jets. Now, look, if the Bills go out and they win a game 9-6, like Roy Collins predicted, and it's because Zach Wilson turns it over 4 times, but the Bills turn it over 3 times and they win, I'm not going to. To me, it's just more of the same, and you beat a team that was on your level. I want to see the Bills look really good. I mean, I know we're past the style points phase, but no, I need some style points at this point to believe that a team that's 5-5 can go the rest of the way with only losing 2 games. So that's where I'm at. That's where my mindset's at. I'm hoping by the time you and I record Bills chat on Sunday night to go out Monday morning on all audio, that my attitude about this team has shifted a little bit. But right now, I still feel like it's whatever happens is probably too little, too late. We'll be here for the ride either way. But any final thoughts from you?
No, I mean, I'm even lesser than you. Like, it's like I don't even care truly about this result. Like, I've obviously want the Bills to win, want to keep my interest there, keep my supportership and everything of that nature there. But in all reality, I know what's on the horizon for this team even after this week. And the reality of it all is, even if they win this Jets game, Josh, I fully feel that they go into Philly the following week and they take the L. And it's just, that's the reality of the league, and where Philly is as a team is just as good as anyone. And then even through a bye week, can they play the Chiefs at this point in time with where they're at right now? Not in my mind. Not against the defense that's humming pretty well there, where I then expect Patrick Mahomes to do his own thing in his own house and take care of business. So that would also then put the Bills, even if they were to win this week, at a 6-7 record. And that to me is just, you have to then win out at that point to even sniff anything. In all reality, I don't see this team doing that with the likes of the Chargers, the Cowboys, and stuff of that nature that can give them a good run for their money as well. So I'm not even going to be there yet. If something happens in that Philly game and everything like that, when we record a week from Sunday and all of a sudden things are different, then I may change my mind. But until then, I am going to be in this abnormal mood that I am in, Josh, where I am not optimistic about things. And I am just going to be grounded and just real with the fact that the outlook is bleak and there might be a larger picture reality for this team and organization moving forward that even a win this Sunday just probably cannot correct.
Win 2 out of the next 3. That's where I'm at. Win 2 out of the next 3, and
Sure.
I will be right back in. I just if you beat the Jets and then you split Philly and the Chiefs, preferably in that situation you beat the Chiefs because it's AFC. But either way, you survive the Philly Chiefs back to back with 1 win and 1 loss. I'll buy in because I see the way the rest of the AFC is going right now, and I think the opportunities there for the Bills. I think they only have to get to 10. But I think that means they are only allowed 2 more losses along the way. If you burn those up in the next 3 weeks with Philly and Kansas City, not even counting the fact they play the Jets here in 2 days, then I think it's a wrap. Because asking this team to be perfect down the stretch is just a little bit too much of an ask given what we've seen so far. But time will tell. This team has ripped off winning streaks before. We know they have the talent to do so, although I think maybe the reality is maybe we overrated some of the talent, particularly on the aging side of things. But either way, win or lose, Luka and I will be back next week to preview that big matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, also in that 425 time slot. That game will be in Philadelphia. I don't know why my hiccups are starting to kick in, but anyway, for Luka, I am Josh McCarty. We will see you next week on Bills Chat Live on the Built-in Buffalo Network.